Well, what's going on, man? Nice to meet you.
You too, my brother.
Hey, check this out. Can you see this?
Can
you see this?
It's a drink, I know, but
it's spicy ginger WBC spicy ginger craft soda.
Okay, is it good?
It's non-alcoholic, so it would go.
So I need to run out to the store right now, right?
Well, I'm being a good girl. I have my carrot ginger.
You know what? I want.
Dear Black man.
Dear Black man.
Dear Black man.
I know that the world wants to portray you to be a certain thing, but I see you. You are beautiful. You are smart.
You are valued. You are a king. You are someone's love.
Someone's light.
I love you, Black man.
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 Black man, I love you.
I love you.
I appreciate you.
Always be here, forever, as your queen.
Will Howard, versatility, passion, and creativity are words that describe bassist, composer, producer Will Howard. Chicago-based but nationally and internationally seasoned bassist, Will's unique combination of gospel roots, formal study, and wide-ranging musical interests have allowed him to work with a wide variety of artists. Jazz and commercial music major, and minored in philosophy at Roosevelt University. He brings his life experiences to the discussion as a source of empowerment.
I often say that nobody cares how Black men feel. They only care about how our feelings make us behave. It doesn't matter how you feel. You're supposed to be a tough. You be a man. Be hard. Be the core of a lot of the violence that we have in our community.
No, buddies who are all about the same age, like early to mid 50s. We joke about we didn't know we were supposed to have feelings until 2002. It's like 2002 is like, hey, you're supposed to have feelings. What?
Kennery Kent Smith. Growing up in a city that has seemingly produced more successful low-end groove makers per capita than any city in the world, Kennery has worked hard to become one of Chicago's best. A 25-year music industry veteran, Kennery is part of a rich tradition of world-class Chicago bassists. His performance resume showcases the Chi-Town musical trademarks of talent, hustle, and versatility to work in any musical genre. As a childhood resident of the infamous Robert Taylor housing projects, a young and impressionable Kennery was destined to play bass guitar. Kennery's experience includes performances with Grammy Award-winning songwriters to national and internationally known artists, theaters, and most recently, Kennery appeared in, wrote, and produced original music for the independent film The Rise and Fall of Miss Thang, available on Amazon Prime. Additionally, for 15 years, Kennery was co-founder and bassist of Chicago's very own new jazz legends, Detour Jazz Funk, with whom he shares writing, arranging, and co-production credits on their debut CD entitled Jazz Funk. Currently, Kennery can be seen and heard each week in the role of first chair bassist on the syndicated weekly Sunday morning broadcast of Victory Apostolic Church in Matteson, Illinois, as part of their extraordinary music ministry.
At the end of the day, we need to relearn, if we hadn't learned it already, empathy. You talk about men and men being in safe spaces to express. There are some of us who don't have a problem with that. We're not afraid of our emotions or feelings or speaking, our truths and minds, especially to other women. Sadly, what happens is what Will spoke about. There's you'll say X, Y, Z, and then there's a shutdown. First we're told, well, I wish I could find a man that would express himself, because men don't express themselves. Men don't say things. They don't speak up. about their feelings. And then you get a man that say, well, here's how I feel. We get shut down. So some of us don't stop just because of that, but a lot of men do. They go back in. And so, and actually the same thing is true for men with women. We have to listen instead of just hearing.
David E. Jones, born in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, raced back and forth between two cities, Chicago, Illinois, and Milwaukee, Wisconsin. He graduated high school in 2007 from Riverside University High School in Milwaukee. He completed high school with a 1.97 cumulative, continued to pursue higher learning, and enrolled at Robert Morris University in Chicago, Illinois, where he was a pre-med student. He left that institution after freshman year with a 3.2 cumulative, then went on to attend Paul Simon Chicago Job Corps and completed in 7 months, while also helping the basketball program make it to the championship games in Atlanta, Georgia, where college recruiters would scout. This was the program's first time making it to that platform since being founded in 1964. Once completing Job Corps, he attended Wilberforce University, named one of the first historical black universities, where he was a dual major in sociology and psychology, and also where he met his beautiful friend, girlfriend of 10 years, and now wife for 2. Though he dropped out after his junior year, he earned a cumulative of 3.89 and was recognized on the dean's list. His career path has led him to continue his education by completing courses in CNA, phlebotomy, MA, basic EMT, and currently a lab technician. He is the founder and owner of Sixth Day Genesis Photography LLC. He is the host of a podcast called I Love You Black Man from a Black Man, and author of a book soon to be released titled They Called Him Gay.
What I think is important for men to know and to get a complete understanding of is what happened to us in terms of how the black man evolved over time, you know, from slavery to once we were released and etc. I think that's really important to know. But I think what's important to know in the here and now is that men always had the agency to be vulnerable. We just decided to live outside, to live inside of social norms and not be vulnerable and not cry. We decided that because once you become a certain age, you have to take ownership for the things that you decided not to do, even though society told you you couldn't do it. It wasn't illegal to do. You just chose not to do it. So basically what I think is most important for men is that men really learn that it's time for us to stop asking for permission to be what we naturally are.
Andrew Golden is regarded throughout the Nashville community as a thought leader, speaker, mentor, coach, servant, uncle, brother, and friend. Andrew is a recent HBCU graduate, attending the likes of Howard University and graduating from Tennessee State University. He is the co-host of Unpopular Opinion, the podcast where he and Dwight Pullen challenge some of the most relevant social norms and ideologies. The purpose of this platform is to challenge our worldview as believers, the way we process, and our norms. Everything isn't meant to change, but all areas of our lives are meant to mature and progress. We speak from our personal testimonies rather than any so-called expertise. Andrew Golden is also the head basketball coach at KIPP Antioch College Prep Middle School. He serves on the board of From Your Father as the director of mentorship. In his spare time, Andrew also serves in his local church as an armor bearer to his pastor. He has a heart for God and God's heart for people. Lastly, Andrew desires to see the social and economic statuses of minorities change by providing education and opportunities to groups that are often overlooked, undervalued, and unappreciated.
I think it's safe to say that vulnerability is probably one of the most difficult concepts for men to grasp, and rightfully so. When you've grown up in households where it's not okay for boys or men to cry, then how do you know how to express your feelings? And so trying to learn these things in our adulthood is probably one of the most challenging things, but it's important. It's the foundation for any successful relationship, especially our relationship with God. I think if I could paint a picture, vulnerability is equivalent to getting cut and allowing someone to touch the wound. And the challenge is, and I think the biggest problem is that, for in our relationship with God, God wants to heal certain things, but we aren't open to allowing him to touch those areas in which he wants to heal. So I think that if we graduate to the point that vulnerability becomes the standard, we can experience true healing in our lives.
Let's get this party started. Thanks for inviting us into the man cave. Happy to be here. All right, so I'm gonna let you all take it away. Just you all talk, hear the conversation where you want it to be, what you want us to know. And I wanted to personally share, you all's ideas, your thoughts, to just build on that. So go ahead.
Anybody?
Hey, Will, this was your idea.
We're shutting down. We're shutting down.
I know. Meanwhile, you got a female saying, talk to us. Like,
there's a whole list of reasons why men don't communicate as well as we should. Some of it is, as I think Dave was saying, societal. Some of it is, a protection mechanism that I wish I knew more about how Black men communicated pre-Americas. Because I'm sure that there was a different system in place, a different set of rules and regulations. Of course, depending on the tribal beliefs and things like that. But here in America, since we've gotten here, our communication has been regulated. It's been taught, and it's been, and we've taught ourselves in order to protect ourselves. So I think that gets obviously passed down. You have somebody like my father wasn't a huge communicator, but I've always been very much so a communicator. So one of my goals was always I would see him and I would see his bitterness and the anger that he had. And he had a rough childhood. And I promised myself that I wouldn't be that person. I didn't hold it against him because I understood who he was and what he went through. And he passed in 94. So I still don't have a complete picture of who he was, but from what I could get from him and from my mom, I knew that he didn't have, he dropped out of school, 5th grade education. He had to work all his life. He had a very interesting family dynamic where he was part of the dark-skinned crew of the family versus his sisters who were the light-skinned crew of the family. So they did a whole lot of separation and teasing and things like that. So he had the usual things that happen in a lot of Black families, unfortunately, of that generation. But I knew I was also very, what's the word I'm looking for? I've also been always very sensitive to how other people feel, empathic, I guess.
Yeah.
And as far even as angry and hard as his life was, he never laid a hand on me. My dad never punished me. That went to my mom. Wow. She was really good at it when she had to do it. Okay. Can count on one hand the times I was whooped. Saying all that to say, it's something that is passed down and is learned, and every now and then somebody decides to break the generational curse. We have a lot of generational curses. So I just think that it's hard to unlearn, and because it's not in the past. That teaching is not in the past. It's not just during slavery we had to. It's, I always said we're on a perpetual battlefield. It's not over. It's still happening. There's still an active assault against us. So we just have to learn how to navigate it in these days and times. But that's a hard thing for a lot of men to do.
Okay, so what I was saying about men's feelings, and to give it some context, was I don't know if you remember a couple of years ago, Chris Rock did a comedy special. Comedy special was called Tambourine. He made a comment that nobody is loved unconditionally except for women and children and animals. Men are judged on what they provide. I was saying that nobody care. They care mostly about what our feelings make us do and how we react to things, as opposed to if I just start talking about how I feel, people's attention drifts because especially their attention drifts because they have their own things that they're dealing with. They have their own feelings, and a lot of women feel like that they have to be responsible for everybody. They have to be responsible for their kids. They don't have time to be responsible for men's feelings. So they give lip service to caring about it, but in reality, it's about what those feelings make you do. If you're doing the right thing, nobody cares if you're unhappy. I was watching a video about with Will Smith earlier today, and he's doing a series about getting in the best shape of his life because he's 20 pounds and but he's got a lot of other mental things going. And he's being transparent in that this process, he's showing how his the physical part is easy because you got trainers and nutritionists and 20 people to help you. But he's having these mental issues that resonate, although it's hard to feel sorry for somebody who's wealthy and famous, but it's interesting to me that he sounds just like me and a bunch of my friends because we're all the same age, and it's interesting to me, and I got a word from that today, as we would say in church, because I'm like, so it doesn't matter if you have all of this stuff. It doesn't matter if your mind isn't right. I might start preaching, but
you better. We have an armor bearer in the house.
It really doesn't matter. Your mind isn't right. It doesn't matter what you have. It doesn't matter what woman you have. It doesn't matter where you work. It doesn't matter how much money you have. If your mind is not right, then you have a problem. And as men, I wish I knew this when I was 18, because then my life would have went, I won't say it would have been better, but it would have been different because I would have had different goals and a different understanding about certain things. But, such is life. You learn, you live and you learn. But that really spoke to me today because I'm like, dude, you're Will Smith.
Question, Will. Who's that?
Siri.
She's jealous. She wants your undivided attention.
That's who's been attacking you.
She wants your undivided attention. So, Will, what did your female friends that saw that video, what did they actually say?
I was disputed. We've been friends for 20-something years, so it's a 20-year discussion, a 2 or 3 decade discussion.
Okay.
No, but it was her and some other people disputed that men should feel this way, and I was like, I'm speaking in general terms about something I do know about directly, personally, but I can expand it because I'm a man. I talk to guys. I know how, I interact with other men. We talk. And when we're really transparent with each other, a lot of that is, people worry about what you do. What have you done? I say it myself. When women start talking about trouble they have with men, I'll be like, well, wait, what is he doing? Like, what does he do? Because if he's not doing anything and he's vexing your spirit, and he's useless. But the conversation is about how men feel, and I think that that's something that we need to learn how to, as men, we need to learn how to translate our feelings and expressions into positive ways of expressing it. I guess what I'm trying to say, stereotype is that we don't talk about our feelings. We don't, we express anger or it's things like that, but a lot of it is because if you don't think that your feelings are going to really be cherished and nurtured, you're not going to open up.
I was called bitter. I was told I was bitter.
Oh yeah. It's your bitter self. Told I was angry. So we're gonna start a group called Bitter and Angry.
Oh gosh, don't do it. Don't do it. Like, when you're in a relationship, right? And because as you all know, I was married for 23 years. For men, if you didn't know how to really express your feelings and emotions, when it comes to having sex or making love, like, what are you feeling if there's none of that?
That's different.
Is it really? Talk about it.
I mean, let other
really.
Let this good brother talk. Let these other good brothers talk.
All right, come on, somebody talk to me.
Tag out.
Talk to me, Lord, talk to me.
Okay.
Because you just said it's different. How is it different?
I'll take a swing at it. Yes. I think that a lot of men, if we really think about the interaction between men and women, the give and take is what the other is providing. So for a lot of men, when you think about how they try to pick up a woman, they present what they have. They kind of peacock before they step to the woman. They use the things, the materialistic things that they have to show stature. And they were like, basically what I'm saying is it's transactional for most men. So, and it's like that for women too. It's like that for women too, but it's kind of not spoken about. For men, our stature is based on what Will was talking about, what we have, what we can provide. And to a woman, whether that's acknowledged or not, it matters. And when you take that into account, men begin to see sex as compensation for the things that they are providing. Ooh. So a lot of men are able to compartmentalize emotions from sex. So they're not synonymous, even though they should be, they're not. So feelings don't have to be there in order to have sex.
No, I definitely know that.
Yeah.
But right. But okay, so as we're communicating having deep conversations about this, how do you feel? Do you feel like there should be feelings versus just an act?
Well, when you talk about should, that dismisses something as basic, something as grand as free will. Because when we talk about what things should be, it dismisses the other things that are. So I don't honestly believe that I'm qualified to answer that question, especially because I don't identify as heterosexual. So if I identify as demisexual, something a lot of people don't know about. So what
is that? I don't know what that means. I've heard the term.
I got you. So what if it was left to me to decide if my standard or concept of what a sexual exchange should be, yes, I believe it is the standard, because for me, a demisexual is at its core asexual. We don't desire sex at all. It's not. It's never a desire. It's never a desire. The basic desire is love, to cultivate an environment where love is present. For me,
But TikTok video yesterday, though.
Just because I feel a way don't mean I don't know how to conjure what I need now. We're gonna be honest. Know how to peacock too now. But the basic point is that when it comes to sex, if I don't feel that there's genuinely love in the exchange, then for me it is transactional. There is no point. I'm just doing it just because there's other motives behind it. People become pawns. So for me, yes, I believe that sex is synonymous with love, but I know that that is not universally the standard.
Right. I don't know if the ladies want to say something.
For me, I know, and I don't know if a lot of other women are like this, but you know, like the way you talk to me throughout the day, like foreplay is so important. And if I feel like I'm just an object, a sex toy to make you feel better when you want to, but there's no attraction or no connection. I mean, I guess it's just sex, right? I guess that's the difference versus making love.
And then the reason why that things like that becomes statements like that makes it even more transactional. And the reason why is because you still will have an expectation of that man. And if that man's expectation is that you provide him sex in order to get what he's giving you, then you're actually failing at being what he needs you to be. So even though that sounds really bad, that is actually several realities. And I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying it is the rendition of teaching that men are taught. And it is also the rendition that you guys respond to. So, I mean, we see it all the time in movies. The Daddy's Little Girl, Gabrielle Union and Idris Elba. You see things like that all the time. She had the friend in her ear. Girl, don't nobody, you get where I'm going with it. Like it even though it sounds distasteful, that reality was created by us. It was peddled by us. And you hear it in music, like when you grow up, as I grew up, you would hear brothers singing about what one won't do. No, women, you would hear women singing what one won't do, another one will. So then it just became a battle of sexual mentalities. And it's pretty much when you're considering, for me at least, I've learned that once sex becomes the topic of conversation in any relationship, people tend to get into relationships if one or two things click. And they don't get into relationships when all of the things click. Like the reason why I was able to build a lasting relationship with my wife is because I made sure that we were everything before we became something else. So it came to us being friends. I made sure that it was important that I knew her as a friend. Like I knew that even when I was down, she was there. And even when she was down, I was like, I made sure we didn't skip a stage, so that just because the sex was good, I wanted to keep her, or just because I had the money or whatever, it was really a bond beyond everything else.
That's exactly what I'm saying. So, I mean, you get it, right?
Yes, but I do get it.
Yes. David, you're 30? 32. Andrew, how old are you?
I'm 26.
26. And Will is what, 53?
Something like that.
I'm the old man on the panel.
Kenny, how old are you?
57.
57. And to hear, so the generations, all right, the difference in thinking, what do you feel about what David just said? I mean, do you have that same mentality, or was it different for you?
I got married really late. I didn't get married until I was 38.
Okay.
And I was married for 6.5 years. So there are the approach that David took to being all different things to his wife is actually the approach that I recommend now. Like my post-marriage recommendation is that you need to get to know.
Yes.
You need to take your time and not be in a rush.
Yeah.
And develop a core friendship that gets to that point of honesty.
Right.
Which takes time.
Right.
Because, it's easy. People are in a hurry these days.
Mm-hmm.
But I've noticed that with people of David's generation, I think David's like 32, his generation, they figured that out, that, hey, if I'm going to be with this person, I actually have to be friends with them. Generation X's, we kind of looked at, we were more transactional. What you got? What you gonna get? What you gonna give me? And we actually moved quicker. Listen, like, I know a lot of guys my age, they've never been married. They, like more than, or they've been in relationships, but they never got married, and every relationship is like 2 to 5 years. Or they've been with somebody for 10 or 15 years and they never got married. I got a friend, they've been together 20 years. Like literally, they lived together, they got kids. They've been together for 20 years. They never got married. And the only reason they're thinking about getting married now is because of healthcare issues. COVID, I think she caught COVID, and there were certain things that he couldn't do because he's not her legal husband. There's an exposure in actually getting to know somebody and letting them actually know you, which goes back to feelings. Yes. Because if I'm not going to, like, at this stage in life, I'm not going to deal with anybody who doesn't understand that my feelings are important and need to be nurtured and protected just like hers.
Exactly.
Like, this is equanimity. This is, there's reciprocity and equanimity here. And, but what I'm finding, because I date age appropriate, is a lot of women don't want to hear that. They're 45. They're like, it's about me.
Wow.
And that's a
seriously?
lot. Yes.
Yes. You see all the terrible.
Am I lying?
It's not. It makes sense. It tracks, though. It tracks. It literally tracks. If you remember, like, the conversation we just had about how I expressed to me growing up and watching women. I would watch. I was only raised by women, so I would only watch women, and I would watch I would listen to the things they say. It tracks that, like Will said, per that generation, it was transactional. And now that we're older and we're coming to new understandings, a lot of women are still stuck in the mentality of it being transactional. That's why a lot of the women that we define as strong Black women, who are very notable and powerful women, I love women like that, but a lot of the issues I found that a lot of them have is and then I want to speak on us too, because that's really what what I found is that a lot of women, they're so stuck in the idea of a man providing from that generation. And I want to be clear in saying that before my wife, I didn't discriminate. So I didn't have an age. As long as they weren't young, it was okay in my mind. So when I was dealing with the woman that was older than me, it became obvious that I wasn't enough for her because I was a young whippersnapper. I may be able to keep up with her stamina, but I wasn't able to provide to her what she needed. So I realized that the relationship wouldn't work because it wasn't transactional for her. It wasn't, I didn't check all the boxes. So yeah, the mentality tracks. And the women of you guys' generation is my mom. So listening to the, like, I grew up listening. I grew up listening, and it's just, and I get it. I understood why women became that way. I get it. Like, it honestly, a woman has more justification in my mind for being selfish than a man has for his lack of desire to be vulnerable. And the reason I say that is because, and when the podcast started, when the webinar started, Ken said that it's hard, and I agree, it is hard to transition yourself out of a mentality that you thought was right, a mentality that you thought was correct. But there comes the question: just because it's hard doesn't mean you don't work on it. And after he said, if the mind is not right, then you got a problem. And so when we connect those two dots and you say, well, it's hard, but and because it's hard, we got a problem, but who's accountable for that problem?
And that's why I follow that up with, some of us don't give up.
Correct. Yeah. And I was coming to it. I was gonna bring it forward. The ones that don't give up are the men that I watch. And when I watch those men, like, I have uncles, my mom has 5 brothers. And when I watch them date, and I have an older brother, and when I begin to watch them date, it becomes obvious that the ones that don't give up get the burnt end of the stick, because the women, when they try to date age appropriate, women that they're trying to date, it's transactional, and the men, like, we ready to heal. Like, what are y'all doing? Stop trying to take. I can't give you anything if my mind is not together. So, and if when I watch 2 people try to date, it always comes down to the psychology of it all. Who's going to say, I need to fix me? Who's going to say, this is a me problem and not a us problem? Even inside of relationships, me and my wife, we had to sit down and have what we called a relational responsibility conversation.
Come on.
Because we have to understand, we have to understand how to be accountable to each other. And being accountable to each other requires you to know what the other person's tixie is. Like, I think that women that are above me, my elder women, it's time for them to learn some patience and a little bit of reciprocity.
You better preach, young man.
Slow clap.
I mean, like I told David before, I've said this to you before. One of the things I admire about you is that you're way ahead of where I and a lot of other guys my age, where we were, because you've surrendered your ego. Like you can't have an ego. You can't have an ego and be at this place. But our thing was that it's ego, it's fear.
No, you know what it is, to be honest with you. It's you, it's me, and it's every other Black man sitting here on this screen. None of us. So what you just said, and I appreciate that comment, and I want to give it back to you. I'm gonna pay that forward to you, because whether you know it or not, I'm learning from y'all. I learn from y'all. Though you and Ken, you guys are the ones that won't give up. Like, you're sitting here having a conversation. So I appreciate you guys continuing to grow and not being afraid to continue to grow.
See that.
Yeah.
But where I find the conversation needs to start is men helping each other to heal. We don't do that enough. There's not enough accountability amongst each other in the community. So you pointed out that I couldn't possibly have an ego to be this comfortable to speak facts. But what does that also mean? That for me came a lot of shame. And most of that shame came from who? Black men. Men are so uncomfortable when another man comes into a room and he's comfortable. And that's the conversation we need to be having, because men a lot of times, excuse my language, dick measure unnecessarily. And then it makes me ask questions like, are y'all gay? Like, and I know that's a little forward, but it's the truth. I come into a room and I'm just trying to be comfortable. And because that makes you uncomfortable, you feel a need to make me feel small. And I'm not the type of person you want to do that with. I won't allow it. I'm too comfortable with who I am. So I think if we want to talk about, that's why my podcast is called I Love You, Black Man from a Black Man, because I think the conversation needs to start amongst us, truly having honest conversations about why we do stuff like that. Things like that. We don't ask the necessary questions amongst each other because we're so afraid of how we're going to look. It's the ego. And
it's also that there's a rule of thumb that you shouldn't be emotionally open to other men because they can use that against you.
And that is actually what they're using against you. When you choose not to be vulnerable, that is when they have leverage. When I figured out a secret is the worst thing to keep, because that is how people, when you begin to keep secrets, that's how people, blackmail you. And I ran the risk of getting blackmailed. Something that I wasn't actually afraid to tell the world. We have to stop being afraid. That's what it is. We're afraid. Men are literally scared to just be. And it makes it hard for men like me to just be, and it makes it hard for communities like the gay community to just exist, the LGBTQ community to just exist, because now I'm forced into that community because Black men won't deal with their stuff. And so it makes me want to attack them physically. So what I learned to do, instead of doing that, I love you, Black man, I'm a Black man. So let's just have the conversations instead of, I don't think this is a woman thing. I don't think it got nothing to do with women. And the cave of men is about men, not forcing each other to hold each other accountable to being an actual man. Who are you, bro? Who are you? Who are you?
What are you on?
Yeah.
Who are you, bro?
Yeah, take off the mask. When I asked David and Andrew to send me a clip for the promo, and I messaged them separately, and both of their promo was about the exact same thing: vulnerability. I was like, oh my God, and you all didn't even know that. So what you're talking about, David, is like allowing yourself to be vulnerable and speaking your truth.
Yeah, I kind of want to go back to the whole conversation about marriage. I think that, the foundation of it, and I guess a lot of marriages, in my opinion, end up failing from the male perspective, just because a lot of times the expectations are off or misplaced. I think a lot of men do go into it with, the idea of like, well, there needs to be a level of reciprocity. And I used to believe that too. I think though, like for me, I have to go back to a biblical perspective and foundation, being that the institution of marriage was first formed by God, right? And so be that as it may, if we are basing marriage and the standard of marriage and how we are to pursue it, Scripture says, "Man, love your wives as Christ loved the church and gave himself." So, if that is the standard, Christ served the church, and she didn't always reciprocate that love, that service. And so I think that oftentimes the issue is we go into it feeling as though whatever we give should be reciprocated. The fact is, that's not a promise, that's a luxury. If we do get that, that's great, but that's a luxury, it's not a promise. And so when we have that expectation and that expectation is not met, then we get frustrated. So I think, first of all, we have to deal with that.
And so basically what he said is that men need to stop thinking that they God. Men need to understand that we need to, the question is asked all the time, who do a black man vent to? You better be venting to God, my dude, or a deity, somebody, because where is your foundation coming from? You, bro, clearly you're not doing it right. Look at your life. Like, so all he just said, and that translates universally, not just in marriage. Like you have to check yourself and say, well, where am I drawing my perspective? Who am I drawing my perspective from? Is learned behavior. Where did these learned behaviors come from? Go and dissect that. And when you figure it out, you will realize you need somebody else to turn to. And normally that's a daddy, but most black dudes ain't got those. So where are you drawing your perspective if you don't got that dad? Like that's what he talking about. And to even make his point even more solid, that the scripture also says God, husband, wife. And like he said, it's not always reciprocated. That God has it designed that way, because if you go backwards, a child will not always show the mother the love that she deserves because she almost died giving birth. So the woman will not show the same amount of love to the husband. And then if you even want to go further, we don't show that same respect to God. So how do you expect complete love? Like it's just, woo.
My God.
You want me to tell you what the Quran say too, because it says the exact same thing. Like it is that deep. Yes, it is that deep. Men in the first place, men want to be God. God created a territory for men, for us who did not want to follow a deity, and it was literally hell. So I just wish men would understand that a deity is important. I don't believe in telling somebody that they need to practice this or that. I just believe that if you're not drawing your perspective from somewhere, if you don't believe that something is higher than you, then you doomed.
So I want to take it a little bit off of this path. Same topic, but a couple things. When we talk about God and we talk about marriage, we're talking about covenant. Number one thing that's missing with a lot of marriages is that they treat it as a contract versus a covenant.
Right.
When you have a covenant, I mean, contracts are made to be broken. There's loopholes and all this stuff. I mean, and of course, if someone gets into a marriage where they're being abused or something terrible is happening, then, you know, they take that up with God and they make a decision. If they need to leave, whatever. But in normal everyday marriage where there's highs and lows, ups and downs, covenant is what carries you through those, because you got two different people who are coming together to try to make something work singularly, but they're still two different people growing at different paces, having their own life experiences. So you're not that whole idea, that honeymoon period that most people experience in the beginning of marriage, whether it's 6 months or a year or so, you know, that type of love is going to change. You got to know that before you go into it. So when it mutates and it changes, then you can't say, oh, well, we're not in love anymore, or whatever they might come up with. So the covenant, the agreement, the transaction that the three of you have made with God is the most important thing to keep in mind during those changes, during that life. And a lot of people lose sight of that. And I'm going to be transparent. You know, my ex-wife, I feel like, you know, I'm sure I had my things that I did wrong. So I own whatever that is. I just don't know what it is. Right. I just don't know what it is because communication didn't allow that from her side. But I respected the covenant. I felt like with that covenant, with that covering, we can work through anything. We're just going to have to find a means to do it. But you got people not looking at marriage as covenant. You got people who get hung up on, this is a big one, roles. Roles. People get hung up on roles. It's like if we're both driving the car, if I don't have a right foot, but I got the hands to steer the car, and she got the right foot to pass the gas, it's like, all right, our goal is to get to this destination. Okay, so we're gonna drive together, we're gonna make this work. Well, no, you don't have your foot on the gas. I don't have a foot right now. I don't have a foot right now. Can we get to the destination? Can we do that? And people lose sight of we have a goal and a destination together. And it's not going to always be 50-50, no matter what Teddy Pendergrass said. It's just not going to be that all the time. But you got to know and understand that. And the core of that is always going to be that covenant. It's always going to be that person, that core person. Why did you marry that person in the first place?
Yes.
Because I love that person and love everything about that person. Everything around that person can change, even things with that person. You know, if somebody gets illness or loses a job, or she finds out she can't have a child, you know, is that a reason suddenly I'm going to leave because she found out that she can't have a child? She didn't know that going in, you know. So I think with a lot of women treat men in that transactional way. Oh, he lost his job. I got to get out of here. Well, he didn't plan on doing that. Most men innately want to take care of our families. That's not a problem. That's kind of how most of us are built. But we also want a partnership. We want to know that, you know, there's a tag team in case something happens, that you don't mind stepping in and doing what you need to do to get us to that destination. A lot of people don't understand, again, all that is based on covenant. You know, the covenant that Moses had with God, he didn't lay out this easy path for this dude with a stutter. You know, it was like, things are going to keep changing. This is what I need you to do. The goal is to get your people out of Egypt, get them to the promised land. It ain't going to look like you think. I didn't tell you weren't going to make it until it was, and now hey, listen, Moses, I need to tell you something, man. You're not getting there. You're not going there.
Oh, my God.
But he didn't stop. When he found that out, he's like, I quit. Covenant.
Yeah, Will, you were kind of talking about the difference between, the younger generation, versus y'all's. I think that oftentimes our generation, we seek the benefits more than the commitment or the covenant. And oftentimes I would say, especially in this day, it's not even a standard to get married anymore. Like, you can experience the benefits of marriage without even pursuing the commitment or putting the ring.
That kind of started with my Generation X. We were the first people to find that. I lived with two women before I got married. Like, I had, that, and it was fine. It was fine. Everybody was doing it, I can see her question.
Sorry, I'm actually. Okay, can you read it, Will?
Sure. It said, April said, shouldn't it have been a meeting of the minds in the courtship before marrying? We, men and women, settle for things that we see as not for me. So I understand what you're saying. This is into compromise and what is a deal killer and what is not a deal killer. And when things are circumstantial, you might think like Andrew or I think Kennedy said, nobody goes like, I'm gonna lose my job today. And a lot of times when economic circumstances change, that's when you really find out who you're married.
Absolutely. I
know
just
that
meant the superficial things, though.
Right.
Yeah.
The superficial things that we look past, that we know that we're not feeling necessarily.
Red flags.
Basically, the things that that you can't compromise and what you want in your marriage and or relationship. We do a lot of dumbing ourselves down. It's not a matter of still humbling yourself, but what kind of women are you approaching also? Because it's a meeting of the
True.
minds in terms of, are they on my level? We looking at different things. As a man, I know that it's more of a physical attraction off the bat for men than it is for women. That's just scientific. I'm just saying on a majority basis. I'm talking for individuals. I'm saying on a more often than not.
That's scientific.
They out
You're
here
right.
getting ass jobs, wearing lashes. They're not doing it for each other. They're doing it for your attention.
Right.
That's all I'm at.
Because I don't know.
Here. So some
a man say, "Oops,
somebody who doesn't that like her she is 100% right. Like, so when somebody who don't identify as heterosexual and someone whose first instinct is not to I don't have natural sexual desires. But when I see something, my body responds because that is what it's trained, it's been conditioned to doing. So she's 100% correct in saying that the first thing that we look at is the physical. That is 100% true, and it is scientific as well, because they did an experiment where if you blindfold a man and if you put a mouth on him, his body is still going to respond because he's ignorant to what's touching him. He just knows how it feels, and so that is an actual fact. But what I will say about it being a meeting of the minds, that's something that can be avoided if we stop moving so fast.
The thing of it is, here's the funny thing. Here's another actual fact. No one sees somebody else's mind across the room.
Correct.
So, even women like to downplay the physical attraction sometimes, and assign it strictly as a man thing. But I've had female friends all my life. I generally get along better with women because a lot of brothers want to be knuckle draggers. I ain't got time for that. I don't have to, like you were saying earlier, I don't have to prove my man. Leave your woman in the room with that. Okay, never mind. But the point being that I don't have to prove, I've never felt a need to prove my manhood to another man. If you doubt me, let's go. Or leave it alone. It doesn't matter to me. It's not important. But the physicality of who we see, we're attracted to what we're attracted to.
Correct.
We don't have, it's kind of it's an instinctual response, whether it's pheromones, whatever it happens to be. We like what we like.
Correct.
So that's going to be the first thing that we see, barring the fact that sometimes you can have, like I had a long distance relationship in the early 2000s. And I met this girl in a chat room. She's from England. She's a Jamaican girl from England. I had never seen her, but we vibed to the point where she came to the States to visit me. And we clicked then too. It just, long distance is hard to maintain. But you can become attracted to someone for their essence, for their being.
Correct.
Right.
That's the definition of my sexuality, demisexual. That has to be cultivated first. So I know that that's possible. But what I think the only reason why I answer her question in the affirmative is because we have to get to a point of having an honest conversation. And how we get there is by us, me, you, Will, Andrew, us realizing that we are anomalies. We are not we're not the popular breed. Our mentality is not the popular mentality. So when a woman responds to, when a woman asks a question like that, we have to, us as men, the ones that are unpopular, the unpopular mentalities, we have to make sure that we remember that, oh, she's speaking from her experience. She's speaking from her experience. And so because she's speaking from her experience, you have to show, oh, I'm not that dude. That comes to work and us showing a woman that we we really out for something other than the physical.
They got to believe it though when we show
Correct. And that ain't your job to
that's
make them
the
believe
problem.
and trust them.
Trust.
It's on them whether they want to believe it or not. But you will know hands down that you did your part. Shoot, that's why it's easy. It was always easy for me to enter and exit relationships. And I didn't feel like people said I move fast. No, I just have perspective. I understand that logic is more important sometimes than emotions. And logic said we couldn't fit. So I'm not emotional about it.
That's where I'm at now. And I think if you ask some of the women that I date, it can be a little frustrating for them.
Mm-hmm.
Because
that's their fault.
Nothing to prove. I'm basically, I always tell women straight up, I'm like, I'd say I have a lot of tact, but I say whatever I want.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to do whatever I want. And you with it or you're not. And you're a wonderful woman. I think you're amazing.
Right.
But and I've said this to women. There's somebody mad at me right now because I have not been responsive the last few weeks. And she's like, what's up? And I was like, I'm just not really I'm not really feeling this. And she, reviewed her application and broke down all her wonderful qualities. Like, hey, look at me. I have these degrees, a doctorate actually, and I make this. And once again, I look like this and I own this and I drive that and I don't have any children. My 100% focus is on, and I was just like, yeah, but that's great.
Just because you're a nice person don't mean you're nice for me.
Exactly.
Right. And she said, oh my God, I'm used to telling guys this. She's like, maybe you've been sent. She told me I was sent by the devil to get back at her.
Well, you know what? And we can, you can't make the final determination about things until you interact with people on a regular basis, but you can get a good idea. When you're not feeling somebody. If you really being honest with yourself, you know whether you're attracted to me or not in that way. That one fundamentally, that or not. So if you're trying to see where this is gonna go as a transactional situation, I don't want to do that.
So what I was trying to say when Will was expressing himself in terms of the woman that's upset with him right now, and she reviewed her resume and listed her credentials, my question to you is, how did you even get entangled with a woman who felt like this makes who she is? And that's what I mean. Like the kind of woman and or man that you choose to deal with, what do they hold to be valuable? You understand what I'm saying? I have degrees, but it's not nothing that I walk around on my shoulders and feel the need to tell somebody that I'm interested in intimately and trying to build a relationship. Those are things that, you discuss on the surface, but nothing that I feel like I have to pull up on roll call.
Well,
I just mean, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, April. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I just wanted to make sure I put it in proper context.
Yeah.
That you all understood what I mean. Kind of, we all have to be accountable, both men and women.
Exactly.
But I feel like the way that men are choosing women is superficial. I don't wear makeup. I don't wear lashes. I don't do all those things, but those are the kind of women that get the attention too. So let's not make it one-sided. But look, you're asking me and at the same time saying I have trouble expressing myself. I can't, because no one is asking you to cry in front of them. We're just saying, speak, talk, communicate.
Okay, so listen. Here's what I'm going to add to that. One of the problems. The first thing was what type of women are you addressing? That use that kind of resume. Well, it depends on how you define yourself as a person. Man, male, female. If you define yourself by your job, by education, by whatever, then that's what they're going to read off of their resume as something that they think is important. And whatever, that's fine. I mean, I think I can speak for the guys on this panel. For us, that's not, I don't care. We don't really have that kind of mindset. But the other part of it is, and my favorite word, you might not know my favorite word. My favorite word is not accountability, but it is understanding how your response is your response. You can't blame someone else. You have to have ownership. Ownership is what I'm trying to say. Ownership is, your immediate response was, well, what are men doing? And the problem that occurs when men are trying to express ourselves is that very thing is we can't get how our lived experience are making us feel without there being a tit for tat.
That's true.
That requires ownership. If we're having a conversation about what women feel, men need to listen and take ownership for the things that we contribute to that issue. We require that same thing to happen when men are expressing our experience, our lived experience that you all can't know intimately because we're living them. And we're trying to say, hey, this is what we feel, this is what we've experienced. But then when it comes back as a retort, a tit for tat, that's when the communication starts falling apart.
And
so
I'm sorry.
Go ahead. I'm done.
I think that April, you are also unpopular, and that is something that we really need more women to understand. They're not succumbing to the status quo. When women like you aren't fitting the social norm of what the standard of beauty is, we need you to understand that you are actually the unpopular. That's not to say that you aren't beautiful or that you're not seen or that a man is superficial for not seeing you because of that. For me, and I'm gonna just be 100% honest, I will be someone who you would call superficial. And it's not because I think that a woman is unattractive bare. It's because when a woman is bare like that, I love it, actually. It makes me, the first thing that comes to my mind is confidence. I love it. That checks the mark. But then where does that come into question? Where is it like, well, are you gonna put this on, arouse me? I love you and all, but that's where the idea that men are superficial come in at, because we do, sometimes we do desire, what they say, a lady in the streets, but a freak in the sheets. Like that's real. And then when it comes to women, what I've learned, because I don't have a degree, but I've always only attracted women who did have degrees. I've always only attracted women who looked better on paper than me. And to be honest with you, when they begin to mention their accolades to me, it communicates to me that all they're saying is that they understand that the exchange is not transactional when it comes to money, and that they just want it to be known that they can stand on their own too, that they don't need a man. That basically women were taught to be sexual, like they were conditioned as well to be sexual. So it's like Ken said, it's constantly a ripple effect. Or the last episode I said on, like, I call it an infinity. And that's, I believe the infinity has to break, because somewhere we have to sit down and begin to have honest conversations. Like, to be honest with you, it sounds like April, the mentality that she has is the appropriate mentality for Will and Ken. Like
yeah, that's the type of woman that
exactly. And so that is
I'm attracted to, is exactly the opposite, like she was saying. Because I borrowed this from Kennery, shiny objects. A lot of men are attracted to shiny people. People in general are. You know, guys got rims on their cars for other guys, but they also they got but they got rims on their cars because women know they cost a lot of money. And I can flex. It's all about the flex and the machismo and all of that. And we become dominated by the idea of shiny objects. Personally, if we go through my dating and marriage resume, it is natural. I'm not, because I don't really fit into, like, if somebody's got a long weave and eyelashes and a lot of makeup and got a Brazilian butt lift and, bought them some boobs, I don't look right standing next to you, because that's
talk to the left.
That's not the vibe I'm on.
It just don't make
my
sense.
Vibe is
for me.
It really doesn't. And even I appreciate the effort.
No, that's too much effort.
That's what, because it don't. It really does. I mean, and I also don't believe that women do these things for men. They do it for other women, but it's sort of for men, but it's also to be attractive to other women. And because I have daughters, I've seen this with little girls. Like, I remember my oldest daughter's 27. I can remember when she came to us when she was 5 and was like, I want straight hair. And I was like, why? And she was like, oh, so I can be pretty because my friend got her hair permed. She's 5. And the funny thing is she's natural now. like that. Right. Now my middle child, who's 14, it's all afros, and she had locks for several years. She took those down. It's all afros and multicolored hair. But she doesn't even believe in having, like, one of her friends was like, oh, you should straighten your hair. And she was like, I'm not a white girl. But that's because you have a mother with dreadlocks and you had a father with locks for 100 years and you were surrounded by people who look just like you. So that was never my thing. It's like, I'm standing here next to you and they didn't, and I guess maybe it was when I had locks for so long myself, it kind of removed a certain people. Yeah. And I just never looked like, I remember a woman telling me when I was in my 30s, oh, you're cute, but you need to cut that hair off. And I was like, I'd be cute without it. Like, I don't do it. Still got a little bit left. So.
Well, this kind of went into more of a relationship thing. I want to really just talk more about you all, men. Let's maybe bring it back in and just just even talk about your health, what you do to take care of yourself, because I think you tend to focus so much on the responsibilities, the things that you have to provide and all that. Like, what are you doing for you?
Tell you, the main thing that I'm doing for myself right now is trying to get my mind right. And I'm not even joking. I'm like dead serious with that. I'm trying to retrain my mentality. I can be very pessimistic, and I'm trying to change the way I think by making an effort to think differently, and live in the moment. And I'm talking about in the moment. Yeah. Like after we get done doing this, I get to eat my ice cream bar, and I'm happy with that. every morning I do mantras to myself, which I never did before. But I realized that I lock into negative thought so often, and with my natural pessimism and always seeing the dark side of stuff, that it had become a way of thinking. So I was like, I need to change that because, because life's too short. Sometimes you don't want the phone to ring. You don't want to get that text message. Kennery and I lost a mutual friend last year, Kahari.
Oh yeah.
And I remember
that.
I remember this very surreal. I got the phone call because he was younger than me. And I got the phone call and I just sat there for about 10 minutes thinking about, but what I was thinking about is I got scared. That could be me. I'm older. I'm not in, not as in good health as I used to be. I'm dealing with some things, health-wise now, even now. So the physical thing, you try to eat better and, you try, but it is about stress management, learning how to let some stuff roll off your back, being satisfied and understanding that this is where you're supposed to be. The universe is placing you in places that you're supposed to be. You still have decisions to go either left or right. I am spiritual, but not religious. Like my formal study of religion actually put me in that point. But yeah, you have to have a spiritual life. You have to have some type of connection to something that's not just you. And that works for me. But yeah, that's what I'm doing. I'm trying to get my mind right, trying to get my body right.
That's awesome.
Kennery got me drinking whiskey and bourbon, but
it's my fault now.
No, you keep bringing it up.
But should I go get my bottle and
come on?
Primarily just focusing on myself, just growth in all aspects. I have my hands on a lot of different things, so it's difficult, to date at this point in time, just with my attention and everything being elsewhere. But what I do, I guess, in terms of self-care, again, my foundation starts with my relationship, my vertical relationship. That's like first and foremost for me. Beyond that, I absolutely love connecting with my community. So I have a strong community, that hold me accountable, that make sure I'm taking care of myself. They help me to pull it back in and take time to myself for sure. Whether it's hanging out with family or friends or, doing exercising, just traveling, doing things that I enjoy doing. I try to be more intentional about that. I think sometimes I can kind of do it haphazardly. And you realize I'm not actually resting. And this is becoming more unproductive when I'm not being intentional about it versus when I am. So
nice. Well, that's good. It's nice that you are aware. So that's half the battle. That's awesome. That's awesome. The way your lifestyle is now, like if you were ready for a relationship, how would you adjust, or would you have room for a relationship?
Yeah, because I definitely understand that as time goes on, it's probably going to get more and more busy rather than, getting less busy. So I'm learning I don't feel like I'll ever accomplish balance per se. I think I'll get to the point where I'm able to juggle very, very well. And part of it is, honestly, I don't feel like right now is my season to date. And so I'm content in that. So I think when the time does come, then, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. My whole thing is operating and walking in purpose. And when I, bump into that young lady, say, when it's time, because I may already know her, who knows, and it's right time. So.
Awesome.
So the last 3 years have been really interesting. I was divorced in 2019, separated in the very end of 2018. And, I have no problem saying that I was diagnosed as being depressed prior to, my separation and divorce. And she also, because there were things happening with the children and that affected both of us differently. So that's one of the reasons why I'm sure things ended up where they did. My preference would have been to work through it together, but sometimes there's another plan. But so I went from separation late 2018. No, mother having 2 strokes in 2018. Separation late 2018. Pandemic, divorce 2019. Pandemic, and here. So it's been a years long struggle. I fancy myself as a functioning alcoholic. They get drunk, but they still get things done. So I'm not staying still, and I'm far from where I used to be as far as depression is concerned. It's just kind of in the background, but right now, purpose has placed me in a space where I'm able to focus on taking care of my mom. It's funny how God does that. So I was like, okay, there's a reason why I'm where I'm at right now. Take care of my mom because, Lord knows she took care of me as a child, and, she did everything. She loved me like she was supposed to. As far as how that plays into dating, I'm kind of in the same kind of space that Andrew's in. It's like, it's not the focus, but it's not ruled out either. Like I said, I've gone out on some dates, and I mean, she was a lovely young lady. Both, people that I've dated in the last year or so, but they would have to really be somebody extraordinary, and I don't know. I can't define what that is because I'm not trying to drag anybody into my world of being a caregiver. It's not even about that. I don't want you to say, hey, we dating. Listen, can you come watch my mom? No, I'm taking care of my family. But someone has to be extraordinary. They have to be patient. They have to understand how life works. They have to know that my time is not always my own. And, besides being a caregiver, I'm a creative. So that's a whole nother animal. Music was the same. Music is my mistress. She plays second fiddle to no one.
Oh God. Oh Lord. Look.
Hey.
Oh boy. Not sure I know about that.
but it's in the sense of it's in the sense that is a core. It is not a hobby.
Right.
And people that come into our lives as creators, especially as musicians, have to understand that is part of my core being. That's the talent, the gift that God gave me. That is my calling. So if you can't get with that understanding, then that's going to be the beginning of the end before we even get any place. And I'm not saying I put music before God in any way or people that I love, but it's in there and it's in there strong, and it's not just a passing. So if I dated somebody, they've got to be extraordinary, and they have to know that I'm a work in progress, a rework. I'm a rework in progress.
Interesting that happened to me recently was there's been somebody that I've been talking to, like we're friends, we're developing a relationship over the last, it's almost been 2 years, and it's a slow roll because of the pandemic and a bunch of other stuff. But she just heard me play about 3 weeks ago, beyond like hearing stuff but she had never seen me play in person. And it's funny because her attitude kind of shifted. Like, she's like, how did I don't think that I really realized that you're actually, because what she wanted to say is, I don't think I realized that you're actually good at what you do. She was like, I know you play and I know that's what you do for a living, but she was like, but that was spectacular. And I was like, I don't know about that, but you know, because
you are
it was
spectacular.
yeah, okay, you know, okay, whatever. You know, am I though? I know.
Oh boy.
I know, no, but because it's just a part of what I do, and for me, one of the good, it's kind of a buffer because my younger children are 14 and 12. That is a wonderful buffer. Trust me, there are a lot of middle-aged women who don't want to talk to nobody who has a 14, like, and have been completely open, like, how? Especially when they were littler, you know.
The wonder years.
Right.
Women tell me like they're nervous. They're like, "Oh, you have 2 daughters and a son. I could deal with the little boy, but them little girls." And I'm like, "Well, one of the little girls is an adult, but no." With one lady I met, she was just like, and Lola was 12. She was like, "Ooh, 12? Call me when she's 18, because she's like, I can't." She's like, "I'm tired of that 12-year." You know, she was like, no. And I was like, "Don't you have a daughter who's like 12?" And she's like, "Yeah." That's why I know I don't want 2 of them.
Right.
Ain't nobody know.
But I think same question, right?
Yeah.
For me, I'm pretty much just learning. Well, honestly, because I am too like a workaholic, or I'm always trying to create some more, etc. So in doing that and learning to provide and all of that for my family, it made me forget who I was as a boy. So I'm trying to remember, you know, things that I enjoyed as a boy and how they matured, and bring myself back to doing those things, which is how I ended up doing photography again, which is how I ended up starting a podcast. And I got a lot of other things going on too, but I'm just trying to use my childhood creativity in my adulthood. Awesome. And I'm also just allowing myself to be. I took a bubble bath the other day. Candle lit. I had an incense going. Like I had a glass of. I'm just learning to just be, like just learning to enjoy myself, and I'm tired of, you know, perception or opinion. If I enjoy it and my wife said it's okay for me to do, she said I could take a bubble bath. I'm taking it. I will post my feet in the bubble water too. Like, I don't care. But
get in with you.
Exactly.
Yes.
I'm just really trying to learn to allow my creativity to take control, and also just doing things to learn to actually relax. Like I get up an hour early now before my day starts to just sit down, and I'm literally not doing nothing. I just sit there for like an hour and a half, and I unpack how I'm truly feeling. And if it's not the best feeling, then I'll study what that emotion is, and then I'll investigate what could have brought that emotion on. Like I'm trying to teach myself to take time before the day begins to actually assess how I truly feel, so that I don't allow my emotions to dictate how my days are gonna come out.
That's good stuff.
That's
like he's so far ahead of
he's I'm telling you, David.
Y'all just be, it's uncomfortable because y'all be, I'm like, they know this stuff. I really did learn it. And what's funny is I learned it from y'all, like watching the unpopular ones. I learned it from y'all. Like, and it just is now I guess I'm in the right era for it to, you know.
This is the era for that needs flexible minds. It needs flexible minds.
So and y'all made it possible for me to be this comfortable. So I appreciate that much, because most men, y'all don't know how many fucks I've been getting it in. Like it be hard because you just want to be yourself, and men don't let you.
But listen, a glass of bourbon or a glass of wine and the bath, I had the book, you know.
It wasn't just no wine. I just want to be appropriate. You understand? I'm a man now. Like it was something else in there now.
Okay,
No, I mean,
okay.
I know.
Care is
Yeah.
that you
Self-care.
gotta do it.
That's my God and coffee moment every morning. Every morning, me and God have that hour and coffee. And a lot of people, if you have a relationship with God, a lot of people get so formal in that whole thing.
Yeah.
I'll be like, Former, what's up? What's up?
Yeah.
Listen, this is what's on my mind. I don't
Yes.
understand what you're doing right now. Here's the thing, it's just a normal relationship. I mean, he calls us friend. So, I'm gonna talk.
What you hiding for if he know it all?
He know it all. You try to act like oh Lord, I am so pious. It's like, no,
right.
I see right in here, man. Come on.
Right,
Let's keep it real.
Right. This is the darkest part of the conversation for me. How are you all doing with everything that's been happening? I mean, it's been happening, but it's even more visible these days lately with the black man and like the Ahmaud Arbery trial was it yesterday? Or was it today?
It was yesterday.
Yesterday or today. George Floyd and just the plight of the Black community, but just the men as a whole. How are you all dealing with that?
One day at a time. These kids who are carjacking and killing ourselves, and our children are targeted, and understand that they are targeted. There is meaning behind all these children being targeted. But that's another story. But I mean, that stuff has been with us. Again, it's part of the conditioning when it comes.
Right.
I grew up in Robert Taylor, so I grew up with my head on a swivel. Mm-hmm. So I'm always conscious that could happen, but I don't let it rule what I do. I let it inform me. So I'm not gonna sit in a car and late at night, but I'm not gonna be afraid to go out. I'm not going to drive to the most dangerous part of the South Side or the West Side, but I'm going to go where I want to go, using that information to be wise. The wisdom that God gives us is to be wise and not a spirit of fear. So that's how I'm operating with that. And where I can help guide somebody in a different, be a mentor or whatever,
as the
then I'll
father
do that.
of a 12-year-old son, I'm terrified at times, because it's that thing where you hope you're doing the right thing, but you don't know. My son is very sensitive. He's not a fighter. That's not his spirit. But you want to toughen him up, but not really. Mm-hmm. It's a delicate balance of I let him be who he is, and I try to reassure him that who he is and how he is absolutely correct. As his covering, I won't let anybody treat him. I won't let you be treated a certain way because you're not aggressive and you're not fighting everybody, and you're not mean, and you're not. Henry said this has always been. From traveling, you get a different perspective. Mm-hmm. When you go to Italy and a guy wants to talk to you for 2 hours about the song that you just played at a festival, and he wants to take you to his house to meet his mother. Mm-hmm. And this is this Italian man who don't know you from nobody, but I can't go to, where was I at? Fox Valley. Mm-hmm. And I'm getting a funny look from some random white person, and my head's on a swivel, and I live on the South. I live in Roseland. So if I go get gas, I'm walking around and I'm a concealed carry, and I'm literally, my head's on a swivel. So I'm getting it when I'm in a quote unquote safe neighborhood. Mm-hmm. But I have to pay attention to where I'm at, because these fools out here is crazy.
Right.
And then, you know, one of my many musical jobs is I work for Urban Gateway. So I go to we went to different schools. And one of the things, we do a presentation called The Evolution of African American Music. And it was very important for us that we were 4 Black men walking into all different types of situations. So we would have the all Black schools where they're not used to seeing Black men play instruments. Didn't know what a drum set was. They didn't know, you know, and I thought it was important for them to see, because they didn't have any Black teachers, Black male teachers. So this is important. But then it's also important for me to be in front of these white kids and let them understand what culture, you know, our culture, and how important it is. So it's a lot. It's a lot. You know, I love women. Y'all get on my nerves sometimes. But I want to protect you. I want to protect you. And it hurts my heart when I got to protect you from somebody who looked like me. I was in the grocery store and this dude was verbally abusing his girlfriend. And I, as a, you know, I'm old, but not old.
Right.
So I was like, nah, bro. And I just told him straight up, and if I didn't, because, you know, he bucked until he actually took a real assessment, you know. he kind of stepped like, what you gonna do? And then he kind of looked like, wait a minute. And I was, I'm twice your size. I'll snap you in that. But it was the fact that there were other Black men and they weren't saying nothing.
Probably had their phones out filming.
Where y'all from?
Right.
What if that was your sister or your mama? You know, but maybe their sister and their mama getting a butt beat. I don't know. But for me, I was taught that doesn't happen. You say something. You know.
Thank you for stepping up and saying something. And April says she appreciates you, Will. I do too. And men like you. You know, David, I really wanted to talk about, it was something you said in that promo clip about you all having a choice. You choose. Go ahead. I forget how you worded it.
Choose not to be vulnerable. I believe I said that we choose not to be vulnerable. And how I know we're choosing is because it's a societal standard. It's not a law. It's not something that we have to be bound by. We choose to be bound by societal norms. So I just meant that men, we need to take accountability for ourselves. When it comes to, you know, the conversation of healing, healing truly is indicative to self. And I believe that it's indicative to us as men alike. So Will correcting that young man in that grocery store, that may have been his first time being checked by a man telling him, yo, this is not the appropriate way to deal with the young lady. So I think that I appreciate too what Will did, you know, because it's important that the mentality of how to treat a woman begins to shift. But when it comes to how I'm dealing with all of the George Floyd and things like that, to be honest with you, I am being very intentional. I guess I'm not, it doesn't startle me, it doesn't surprise me. For me, it's normal. Like they say, it's embedded into our genealogy now. So, you know, in my mind, when I see things like that on the news, it's not anything that is peculiar to me. So the way I register it is, whereas we're just not represented well. And there's not enough men stepping up to take platforms to represent Black men. So even though I seem like I like talking, I seem like I'm extroverted, I'm actually introverted. I don't like talking. I don't want to be a public figure. I don't want to be the face of anything, but I understand that if I am mute, then no change can come. And then if I keep all the time that, I'm ahead, or like, every time I speak to a guy that I deem an elder that I'm coming to eat from, and I hear him say to me, you're above your time, or you're ahead of the schedule, keep going, like that just makes it just makes me feel like, okay, yeah, I can't not say anything. I have to continue, despite the fact that I feel fear, which is what all men feel, which is what's preventing them from being vulnerable. So deal with it all is by choosing not to be scared ever, even if I've been pulled over and held at gunpoint because the car that I was driving, they said that I stole it.
Jesus.
I grew up I joined the gang at 7, so that it's just normal to me, I guess. And it shouldn't be. That in itself is a problem, which is why I feel like the best way to attack it is to talk about it.
Like Ken said, it's day by day. I would say when a lot of that stuff was kind of happening, it took a toll for sure. And where I am now, I don't know, I think a lot of it is like kind of like you're aware of it. A lot of the things for me though are kind of like subconscious in a sense, to where like, growing up, seeing certain things, like also like Ken said, my head is just constantly on the swivel. But also being aware at all times, no matter where I am. So like in the event, where I get pulled over, which I have before, it's like, all right, let me do everything I can to make sure I don't create a situation.
Exactly.
Yep. You know what I'm saying? So like, I'll turn all the lights on in my car, I roll the windows down, because I have tents on my car. First thing I let them know, hey, before you get started, I do have my carry license and my firearm is located in my glove box. Like, sweet. I let them know so that it immediately takes the situation, that it de-escalates it, and they feel a little more safe. And it sucks that, you have to do that as Black men. But at the same time, I'm like, if that's the difference between me going home or not, I'll do it. And so, to the question as it relates to like how I deal with the kids, first of all, it started with my nephew. So like coming up, as Dave was talking about the whole vulnerability piece. For me, when I grew up, it was like, hey, man, I said in the video, men don't cry, constantly hearing that from my pops or whatever. So it cultivated something in me that forced me to suppress, right? And I didn't learn until honestly this year, late last year, like it's okay to be vulnerable. And I think that is the foundation to, creating accountability and things of that nature. So it started for me doing it with my brother, being able to open up and talk about things, whether it was like, bro, this is what happened with this chick, whatever the case might be, like it kind of started there. And then it has grown from there. So like with my nephew, I do the same thing, make sure I'm not saying things like, hey, boys don't cry. You know what I mean? Like, It's like, hey, I understand that you're hurting, or that something is wrong, and that's cool. You can emote however you want, but let's talk about it. And so trying to create a dynamic in him where it's like, feel what you're feeling, but also be able to articulate what it is that you're feeling so that we can address the issue. And so the same is true, with my basketball team. Like, it can be different at times because you're wanting to create a culture of like toughness and like, being able to fight through or get through whatever, the circumstances might be, but also being able to, feel what it is and relate what it is that they're dealing with. And as Ken said earlier, be empathetic to what it is that they're dealing with, and showing them like, yeah, I understand, I've been through that too. And I was able to get over it, so you can as well.
You guys have had to find your voice. Yeah.
And understanding that your voice does not have to sound like that person's voice or that person's voice. That's the magic. That's the big thing that we as men have to unlearn, that all men, your manhood is not defined by anyone else but you. Who you choose to be, who you are, is be okay with that. And so
ain't nothing you can really do about it anyway.
ain't
Right.
not a doggone thing you can do.
Exactly. You guys, it's like past our time. I don't know if anybody has anything they want to say before we go. I don't know if we have to do a part 2.
There are so many subjects.
I know. And I think
stuff,
just keep communicating. Like, we want to know.
The fact that Black men's life expectancy is so much lower than other ethnic groups.
Yes.
Even though we have so many other advances. How many brothers who are dealing with prostate cancer? Like, because I'm at that age. So now your prostate cancer, lung cancer, lymphoma, all that other stuff, high blood pressure being normalized. You know, I was around a bunch of middle-aged guys last night. We're all about the same age. And we literally were having a whole conversation about blood pressure medicine. We're at a gig. Like, we ain't talking about all the fine women there. We talking about, man, you know, when I started on this medication, blah, 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 blah. And I'm just like, I can't believe we're having this. But I can, because we need to. And the fact that I know dudes who are in their 20s and 30s, I'm on high blood pressure medicine, huh? You know? Or all of these other chronic health issues. And they're not going to the doctor.
Right.
Yes. I mean, because that's like, it's a whole other subject. But, you know, a lot of times it becomes this whole thing of when you're middle-aged and dating, people say, I want somebody to grow old with. No, you want to grow old with somebody to take care of you.
It's facts. And it's not as, it shouldn't be as weird of a thing as it is, because it's a cultural thing. I mean, other cultures, the cycle, they just do the cycle. They take care of each other from birth to death, you know, and it's okay. But we've made it into something weird.
Yeah.
Why?
That's what we should talk about next, because that's a whole other idea. Putting your kid out at 18 like that. That's cultural to us. You own some. Yeah, that's
man, talking about it.
Yes. All right.
And it's not even native to our culture.
Correct. Correct. Learned behavior in America.
Right, in America. Look, we've been talking about migrating. Where would we migrate to?
Oh, I just want to eat this land. I'm going south, and I'm bob as much as I can, and y'all come on down and buy some stuff.
I always say I'm an uppity Negro. I don't need to go anywhere but America. No, I'm a proud Negro. I'm getting t-shirts.
I feel it.
Right. I just want my summer home in the hills of Italy. That's all.
This is summer home.
I want everything that everybody got here.
I agree. I don't want to go nowhere. You just move the hell over.
Oh, I ain't going nowhere. I just gonna have that too.
Okay. Y'all can leave. Bye. Leave all the stores.
Wow.
Oh, don't get me started on fragile white people. That's a whole nother.
Oh God, we're trying to build us up. We're trying to build up our community. Look, I can't even.
Stop crying. Critical race theory. Be quiet. Your grandpa was a racist.
See, that's a that right there. Woo. Anyway, all right, you guys.
If it was a level playing field, you wouldn't have what you have because you're already average.
That's why I can't. That's why I'm focusing on us. That is why I'm focusing on us and building together, building each other up. I can't even. That's so toxic. Like I can't even think about all that. That's too much.
She seemed to be a nice white lady.
What'd you say? What'd you say?
I said she seemed to be such a nice white lady. And then she came out of her bag.
Anyway.
Am I talking out of school? Edit this out.
Yes, Yeah, we good. We good. All right, you guys. Thank you so much. Love you. April sending her love. She said, love you guys. Great
April,
show.
I appreciate you. I always appreciate what you're saying.
Yes.
April,
yes.
Yeah, I love April. That's my girl.
Hey, April, we getting some shout out, baby. See, I told her the day I met her, that girl gave me goosebumps. I'm saying her name and I got goosebumps right now because she's just filled up with so much information. And it's so valuable to building up our tribe, building up our village, building up our people. Go ahead, David.
It's one thing that I did want to touch on real. He's Kennery. I feel like that's what I should be saying.
Okay.
Kennery said, "How was African masculinity outside? How was what was masculinity? What did it look like outside of America for Black men?" And when you read up on the African proverbs, it'll tell you all of that. It'll tell you about all of it. Like men in Africa held hands. Well, that's how you show that you are best friends outside of being related. They will hold hands and walk down the street. But they did get it strict to like there's a line between the amount of male bonding that's allowed. Because even now to this day, anything that goes from, it's a thin line between what's bonding and what's considered homosexual. They don't see it like that. As long as you're not touching each other, is that their concept of masculinity is drastically different than the concept of masculinity here.
Different pretty much every place else in the world for most men, period, not just Black men. I mean, it's just a whole different thing. We've been
African culture, Arab culture.
Yep.
There's a certain amount of male bonding, but that's the result of colonialism, which is
right.
A subject.
Yep.
Look, don't get April started. Go there. So okay, well, saying that, bringing that to to the forefront. How do you think that you all, starting with you among yourselves, how can knowing this, how can you break that?
Oh, I tell my friends, my male friends, I love it's not a thing. I find where you're comfortable at, and that's where we're gonna go. I'm not gonna force how we interact upon you, and I would hope that you would not do that to me. But my friend, I don't have a whole lot of male friends just in general, because not a lot of men are
as evolved as you. You could say it.
Right. Well, I mean, they don't know themselves because they're too busy catering to the stereotypes. I ain't got time for all that. But I don't have a problem expressing, my friendship and my love for my male friends.
Yeah, I don't think that's a problem that probably anyone that's sitting here has. It is what we like to see it as somebody hating, or we call them haters, but that what they're really doing is crying for help, and we register that cry for help as a cry for help while they doing shady stuff. And it's just the only thing that I think we can do is not return the shade or not return the haterism, or just
too much energy.
Yeah,
I always
requires
a hater is an assignment that you give somebody in your life very often.
It's a choice, yeah.
And it's a choice, and it's also a function of ego sometimes.
Yep.
Once again, although ego is a normal part of a human psyche, but the way it manifests is the real issue.
Have soon to be published book that I'm authoring called Lessons for the Little Boy. Ironically, it's a friend of mine named Jamie Gill. She's the author, and she gathered, I think it's 12 men to contribute to the book. And basically, it's a book about men's experiences, speaking to the little boy in every man, not just Black men. And we all contributed a passage to that. And I'm looking forward to that book coming out in the next couple months.
Congrats. That's exciting.
Yeah, it
is. That is exciting. I can't wait to get my copy.
Me too.
I will keep you all posted for sure when it hits the shelf. And then my book will be out next year. And I don't know if all y'all gonna want a copy of that one.
I might. What it's about?
Oh, this and that.
Uh-oh.
I'm keeping my eye out for it.
Not really a memoir, but it's a. You'll see. I'll keep you all posted.
Yes. April just said congrats. I don't know
Thank
if you can
you,
see her
April.
message.
And I have it available on all streaming platforms now. And all streaming platforms, but if you want to buy it from Bandcamp.
Yep.
Can you send a link?
Sure, I can try. See if I can.
I love you guys. I love you, Black men.
Love
David,
you too,
I'm stealing
Sky.
that. I love you guys so much. I thank you for your time. And I know that, as I listen back, I'm going to get so much more from this. And I hope that, ladies listening to this, it will help to give a better understanding, coming into your world. But I feel like all of you all are at a different level, though, like you're growing in your own way. You know what I mean? Like you're growing, you're doing things so much different than what, how men operated in the past. And that means a lot, especially Ken and Kennery and Will, just keep leading the way. Huh? What'd you say?
We're old.
No, you're not old. You're not old. Old is a mentality.
Yeah.
Everybody got all the information out the chat?
Yeah.
Yep.
Before I end?
Yeah.
All right. I love you guys.
Love you
Grace
too,
and peace. Bye.
Great meeting you guys.
Yes. Bye.
All right.